Chapter 4. Boy, where are you, boy? I'll wring your ugly neck. Wild Boy lay flat on one of the caravan roofs. His heart pounded so hard he was sure it would give him away. He didn't move, didn't even breathe. Below, Augustus Finch stalked along the back of the vans. The web of scars flushed across the showman's face, and a glob of spit hung like a spider from his chin. He limped painfully from the cut on his foot. The glass shard that had inflicted the wound was gripped in his hand, ready to use in revenge. "You'll be back," he screamed. "You hear me, you ugly mutt? You'll be back, 'cause where else has a freak like you got to go? But you won't need to worry about your hair no more, 'cause I'm going to skin you alive." Wild Boy's face burned with anger. He wanted to leap from the van and smash the showman to the ground. But this time he fought back the rage. He'd been lucky against Finch in the van, and knew that only a fool would challenge him twice in one night. So he lay still, as rainwater from the roof seeped through his coat and soaked the hair on his chest. He lay still until the showman was gone, and his cries were drowned by the roar of the fair. Even the Wild Boy didn't move. He was trying not to cry. He'd spent his whole life not crying, no matter how badly he'd been treated or teased. But he was so scared right then. He'd never seen Finch that angry. If he went back, the showman would beat him to within an inch of his life, and he wouldn't care that the star of his show couldn't perform for a week. He pulled his coat tighter as an icy wind swept over the rooftops. He knew that he had to go back. What else could he do? Certainly nothing normal. A freak show was the only life someone like him was good for. One or two freaks had got away to run their own shows, but first they'd saved up money to rent a van and a horse. Wild Boy hadn't earned a single penny during his time with Finch, unless he could steal some money. How hard could it be? He just had to find the right target, someone who wouldn't miss a few pennies from their pocket. He slid to the edge of the roof, his sharp eyes racking the crowds. From here, he could see all the way to the circus tent at the end of the path, a swirl of colour against the soot-black sky. There were hundreds of people down there. He saw a beggar with a sign saying "Shipwrecked Sailor," whom he could tell had never been to sea. He saw 4 women playing cards, and at least 3 of them he knew were cheating. He saw a woman faking a fit outside a gin tent, a man with a hook for a hand, a girl stealing gingerbread. His eyes landed on a wealthy-looking couple buying chestnuts for their daughter. Was there something to steal there? No, they only looked wealthy. The mother's ears were pierced, but she wasn't wearing earrings, even though the family was all dressed up. The girl's expensive dress was patched in 3 places, and 2 of the father's mother of pearl shirt buttons were missing. Pawned. Wild Boy guessed to provide for his family. No, he couldn't steal from them. Suddenly he sat up. Across the path, a dark figure moved between the vans. Someone was shadowing the family, stopping when they stopped, moving when they moved, darting from behind one van to the next. Another thief, Wild Boy realised. He wasn't surprised. The family was an obvious target. They didn't just look rich, they looked scared too. Wild Boy watched as they made their way cautiously along the side of the path, as far as possible from the threatening crowds. Soon they would brush past a banner for the circus. That, he guessed, was where the thief would strike, and he had a good idea who that thief was too. He turned away, trying to forget what he'd seen. "It ain't none of my business," he muttered. Only that family wasn't rich, but they were going to get robbed unless he did something about it. He imagined how they would feel when they discovered they'd lost what little money they had. He cursed, banged a palm against the rooftop. He would warn them, that was all. He'd give them a flash of his face. That was enough to scare anyone off. A moment later he was running again behind the vans. His long coat fluttered as he leaped over planks supporting sinking wheels and weaved between guy ropes where showmen had pitched tents backstage. He ran right around the circus tent and to the backs of the caravans on the other side of the path. He ducked down an alley between 2 of the vans and finally stopped, catching his breath. A strip of cloth hung across the other end of the alley, painted with a slogan for the circus: Mrs. Everett's Most Marvellous Show. Wild Boy felt a glow of satisfaction. He'd got there before the thief. He crept to the end of the alley and peeled back the banner. Yards away, dozens of people trudged along the path. He was relieved to see that the family didn't need help after all. They had already turned back towards the park gates, moving so fast they were almost running. Wild Boy watched them go for a moment. The girl was crying, but how he envied the life that she was running back to. He hoped for her sake that she'd forget all about this terrible place. Just then something dropped from the top of a van and landed with a splash behind Wild Boy in the mud. It was the thief. He whirled around, but the person was too fast, a blur of red and gold. A fist punched him in the stomach and a boot kicked him hard in the shin. "I saw you, freak! You scared off me mark!" Before Wild Boy could react, the thief leaped over him in a single acrobatic bound. He turned to fight, but again he was too slow and the thief booted him painfully in the backside. He staggered forward. His head whacked against the caravan wall and he tumbled into the mud. The boot squelched closer. "And now you're gonna pay."